not done. We have to establish that the basic issue is the IR, the adoption of IR leads to better economic outcome, and another contribution which is basically looking at voluntary adoption. Most of the IR paper you will see in good quality journals like European Account from YouTube, it's all about South Africa. Because in South Africa, as you know, it is the only country which has made mandatory IR reporting. Other than South Africa, all other countries, US, UK, we all treat the country, Malaysia, Indonesia. So we, in our project, we have selected 35 countries. So huge data, around 6,000 observations, looking at the economic consequence of fire. Right? So I look forward to discuss with you tomorrow in a workshop. I'll show you all the reports and how we have addressed. So thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Ahmad, for the interesting talk. Our last plenary speaker is Professor Dr. Ahmad Fauzi Abdul Hamid, who is from Universiti Sains Malaysia, USM Malaysia. Professor Dr. Ahmad Fauzi is Professor of Political Science at the School of Distance Education, USM. He trained as a political scientist and political economist at the Universities of Oxford, Leeds, and Newcastle, United Kingdom. His research interest lies within the field of political Islam in Southeast Asia. Dr. Ahmad Fauzi has published 50 scholarly articles in leading journals. Currently, he is the chief editor of Kajian Malaysia, Journal of Malaysian Studies, USM Press. The title of his speech is Malaysian Studies as a Distinctive Academic Discipline from the Lenses of Scholarly Publishing. Ladies and gentlemen, please warm round of applause for Professor Dr. Ahmad Fauzi Abdul Hamid.
Very good morning to you all, and please be honored. It's a pleasure for me to be amongst you in this very auspicious occasion, and I thank my friend Dr. Kajian Malaysia from Universiti of Malaysia for extending this invitation to me after I declined many invitations from year to year. At last, he came to Penang, and with me being a Penang resident here at University Sains Malaysia, so I think it was proper for me to decline it this time. Okay, what I'm going to speak about is a bit more general than my profession as a political scientist, as the chair introduced just now. Because I'm going to speak about Malaysian studies in conjunction, also in line with my present position now as the editor-in-chief of Kajian Malaysia, Journal of Malaysian Studies, which by far is the most, or one of the most established social science journals in Malaysia. Have been in existence since 1983. We are into volume 38 in 2020, and a lot of social science luminaries in this country. You mentioned it, Jomo Sundram, Abdurrahman Ambo, Wanzawi Ibrahim, they have published in Kajian Malaysia. And most of them in the early careers, they published with Kajian Malaysia. It's now indexed in Scopus and also in the ESCI, the emerging citation index of the Web of Science. Now, in this country, we normally have a wrong impression of Kajian Malaysia. Whenever Kajian Malaysia is mentioned, we have the impression of being general studies or some compulsory university subjects that you learn at university, whether it's philosophy, the new course introduced by Ministry of Education, or general studies or ethnic relations, which all universities have to take. Okay, all students have to take, okay, in order to pass, okay, their courses. But what I want to introduce is more of Kajian Malaysia or Kajian Malaysia or Malaysian studies as part of area studies. And most of recently graduated social scientists, they are more than often trained in not in area studies, but in discipline-based studies. So they become pure economists or political scientists. Okay, they become anthropologists, sociologists, and they lack the ability or even lack the interest of publishing in transdisciplinary terms. Now, Kajian Malaysia caters for submissions in all social science disciplines, also in arts and humanities, as long as it has to do with Malaysia. Okay, so for Malaysians over here, it is directly relevant to you if you want to publish with Kajian Malaysia. And for non-Malaysians over here, perhaps you have a comparative study between another country and Malaysia, or your own country and Malaysia. Even if you come to Malaysia to do field work and get some data or sample, okay, from Malaysia, then you are still eligible to publish in Kajian Malaysia. And in comparison, you can also apply, okay, this area studies, okay, in your own countries, whether it's Indonesian studies or Thai studies or Singaporean studies. And because of the lack of training, okay, of contemporary social scientists in this, now we hardly have any specific area studies faculty or department in Malaysia. We have a Department of South Asian Studies in Universiti Malaya. That's about it. We have the Institute of Malaysian and International Studies, IKMAS, okay, at UKM. Even in USM, we once offered a Masters of Asian Studies, but then the university decided to abandon it. I was teaching Islam and Southeast Asia, okay, a few years ago, okay, in that course, because there were too few takers. Now students they go to university, what they think is, what do I want to become? So if I take Asian Studies, what can I become? Hey, you're not an economist, you're not an accounting expert, you're not nowhere. As an Asian Studies graduate, what can I become? That's what students ask. So once I was teaching a class of just 3 students, okay, who were taking Asian Studies. Now, I would say that it has, for me, it's worked for me well. And although I'm basically a political scientist, okay, most of my publications, 50 articles and over 30 book chapters published with major publishers, okay, whether it's Oxford, NUS, Routledge, and so on, most of them are within the area studies discipline rather than political science. Perhaps got one article in Japanese Journal of Political Science, Asian Journal of Political Science, and that's basically it. Okay, although I'm essentially a political scientist, but I choose deliberately to publish in multi or inter or transdisciplinary outlets. Okay, and you have that, okay, even among contemporary journals. Pacific Affairs, for instance, Asian Studies Review. In the USA, you have the Journal of Asian Studies. I'm a member of the American Asian Studies Association based in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Okay, they have annual meetings, which I've attended once. And Asian Studies Review, based in Australia. Now these are prestigious Asian Studies journals. Okay, and unfortunately for Asians, even for Asian studies disciplines, okay, it's dominated